Hey friends, I want to tell you a little story about resistance that I encountered this past week, and I think you might sort of find it funny and sad. I also think that you might really relate to it, and I want to share with you just some aha moments I've had over my career around resistance and breaking through resistance. People that, especially in the entrepreneur world, are able to break through this resistance. They tend to be the most successful, the most impactful, right, and earn those higher levels of incomes. And I'm sure if you're watching this, that's what you want to be. And so I think this is going to be super, super helpful for you. So let me tell you this story. I released my book. I think it's in February, end of February. And right now when I'm recording this, it is the beginning of May. And I referenced a bunch of clients in that book. And my goal was immediately to write notes to them, send it out, say thanks for being part of my story. I appreciate you and all that, right? Well, it's been two full months and I haven't done it yet. And I have, for the past 2 months, I've had this stack of like maybe half the books that I need to do because I know, you want to eat the elephant one bite at a time. So I kept like half of them here and I figured I'd, do in between, and I wasn't doing them. And I was just having some massive, massive resistance. This past Saturday, I put it on my list, took the books out, and I still, I watched a webinar, I took an online course, and these are the things I do for fun. So why was it so hard for me, and by the end of the day, I had not written out these books. I was having massive, massive resistance for what seemed to be a pretty simple, straightforward task. As irony would have it, that day, one of the members in the Emerge Surge, she posted, "I'm having massive resistance to reaching out. What tips do you have?" And so I went through and I answered her question about resistance while I was staring at a stack of books. So I felt like a big loser at that point for being able to dish out advice about resistance, but succumbing to it at the same time. So I wrote out one and then wrote out the next, and wrote out the next. And I was talking to Charlie, my husband, on Saturday night when he got home from work. He works at the lab, so he works Tuesdays through Saturdays. So I'm telling him, okay, I left some books, we need to ship those out, blah, 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 blah. And I said, I'm really pondering why I had such deep resistance to doing this. Like, am I having imposter syndrome? Is that coming up? Like, am I afraid I'm not gonna be able to say the right thing? Am I worried that I'm leaving? Like, what is my deep resistance issue? And he just laughed and he said, it's because you don't like doing tedious things. And then he teased me about the fact that I can write a book in 3 months, but I cannot check my mail in 3 months because I, quote, don't have time. And I was trying to make my resistance a really, really deep thing. And ultimately, all I needed to start doing was just start moving through the resistance, and then the resistance would just disappear. And so today I'm going to pose to you the best way to break through whatever resistance that you might have. And that is simply to take a baby step. Now, we at Emerge, we've coached over 8,000 people. And so I've seen tons of manifestations of resistance. I've seen it in my own business. I've seen it on Team Emerge, right? I see it in my kids. And I'm curious if you can relate to any of these common resistance areas when it comes to business or network marketing or really anything. One, reaching out to potential customers. Number two, reaching out to previous customers. Three, okay, really reaching out to anyone. Creating social media content. It took me 20 minutes of procrastinating to just write this podcast, which I already had written in my head. Making checklists or outlines for your team to do better, maybe scheduling meetings, sending out the mail. Like, some of these are really hard, and some of these I find resistance a lot of times it doesn't even happen in the hard things. it happens really in the things that are not that hard, that tend to feel mundane at the time, or they maybe have long-term, we don't get the instant gratification, right? It's very easy for me to call a client who needs help and needs me to save them. It's harder for me to mail that client a book, which takes less time, right? So, I mean, it's weird. So let's talk a little bit about some of the simple things to understand resistance. And I think even just these simple things will help you to have an aha moment about breaking through your own, and then I'll give you some ideas on how to break through. Number one simple thing to understand about resistance is normal. It takes our mind, on average, 20 minutes to get into some sort of flow. That's because of context switching, which you're moving from one thing to the next. Don't multitask. It takes some time to recalibrate. So if I'm moving from a coaching client to writing a podcast, there's probably about 15 to 20 minutes minimum of resistance I'm going to feel just switching from one task to the next. Instead of overthinking that, I'm just going to sit in it, not multitask, because every time I switch the task, I'm going to restart that 20-minute resistance timer. Number two, it's normal. Everybody has resistance, and having resistance does not mean there's something wrong with you or that you're not going to be successful. I often find myself having the most resistance right before the biggest reward and biggest payoff. So resistance in and of itself, I have it. My business partner Karen has it. My business coach has it. I act like a baby a lot. I'm going to talk about it in a little bit. But yeah, resistance is normal. Everybody has it. It doesn't change whether or not you'll be successful. Number three, it's normal. And it's important to find the root cause of resistance. Are you like most high performers that just don't like to do what feels like tedious work? Is fear holding you back? Are you not sure what to say, and so you're feeling stuck and you don't want to be foolish, or you just want to do well and communicate properly? Do you feel uncomfortable in a way that doesn't feel right? Maybe are you not prepared, and so your integrity is actually giving you resistance that you need to think about? Take a few minutes and ask yourself, what's the core reason for my resistance? This is going to be really helpful. For me in this story, this resistance was really more of I don't want to, throwing a temper tantrum. I want to do something exciting and fun, not mail out stuff. And it's not very mature, but once I figured out what was the resistance, I knew that I could just make the first move, and then it was going to get a lot easier. And honestly, the whole task took about 15 minutes. It's ridiculous. Okay, so what are my best tips to overcoming resistance? And I'm going to look at a couple different things that might be causing resistance, and then the actual prescription for that. So the first one, are you being a baby? This is my most common one. Make it a game, just do it, give yourself a reward. This is for tedious tasks that don't require much thinking. The ones that require much thinking, they're going to probably have a different cause of resistance. Number two, are you not sure what to say? And this is creating resistance. So this is maybe an outreach. The best approach for this is just acknowledge the awkward, break the ice. Another option here is don't worry about the income or the outcome. Instead of focusing on the objective of maybe that outreach or that conversation, just focus on showing up. You're much more likely to have a positive outcome if you show up with an imperfect approach than if you don't show up with a perfect approach. You can also write a rough draft. I do this a lot when I was writing my book, or even with a lot of my podcasts, is I just will write sloppy stuff and then just come back to it. It's a lot easier to adjust something and make it a little bit better if it's sloppy, as opposed to writing a perfect first draft. And so you can write a rough draft. You can post it in the Emerge Surge if you're one of our members. That's your business coach in a pocket. Use it. The third idea here is, if you're still feeling stuck, reach out and tell someone you have resistance. Just admitting it takes away its power. I personally hire out my accountability. I have Karen, my business partner. I have Heather, my business coach. I tell them, I make commitments to them, and then I actually let my people-pleasing nature take over. And that breaks me through resistance. Number four, are you staring at your phone or your screen? just give it a little bit of time. You might be stuck in context switching. Don't multitask until you feel motivated. Motivation comes after you start, not before you start. Number 5, are you getting caught up in your own fears? Well, use your imagination to imagine success as opposed to failure. One of my best favorite quotes on my monitor right now is from one of my clients, Rebecca, and she said on an interview that we did together, failure is always on the table, but so is success. So let's use our imagination in a positive way. So just a quick recap, resistance is normal. Take a baby step to move out of resistance, even if that baby step is telling someone you have resistance or making a sloppy first draft. Any progress is moving toward breaking through that resistance. And once you start taking those little steps, they'll turn into bigger steps. And next thing you know, you are up and running, my friends. So I hope that was helpful for you. Let me know which part of this you related to. And I hope you all have a great day. Bye.